Nonprofit Servant Leadership Profile for the American Red Cross, CBailey, Grand Canyon University, LDR 630. After serving as a nurse during the Civil War, Claire Barton furthered her calling by founding the American Red Cross in 1881. Although originally created to care for the sick and wounded during wartime, the organization has expanded its scope to include disaster relief, blood collection, training and certification, nursing services, and military support. Although the Red Cross has adapted to meet society's needs, they remain dedicated to serving others. An organization needs to have a clear mission and vision to define their purpose and guide their future. This is very important for a nonprofit servant leadership organization because it provides a sense of vision that people are drawn to and united in, that enable them to be driven by motivation inside them towards achieving a common purpose. The mission of the American Red Cross is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. This statement supports the focus of helping others and is driven by leaders and followers with a strong calling to serve. The vision is extensive and speaks to the expanse of services provided. However, there is a common theme of providing compassion, empathy, and critical services to those in need. Through leveraging dedicated volunteers, the American Red Cross strives to turn compassion into action to meet the needs of the communities they serve. By looking at the mission and vision, one can see that the organization is built on the foundation of servant leadership. This is further supported through the fundamental principles that serve as a pillar of the organization. When compared to the core principles in Greenleaf servant leadership, clear parallels exist. Stephen Covey drew a connection between moral authority, or the freedom to choose based on our universal conscience, our core principles, and will to sacrifice. The core principles speak to the central values held by the organization and are the foundation for the mission and vision. They set the expectation for the behavior of both leaders and followers. The first core principle of the American Red Cross is humanity, which is defined as compassionate, sympathetic, or generous behavior. This aligns with the servant leadership core values of listening, empathy, healing, and awareness. Greenleaf stated, "I have a bias about this, which suggests that only a true natural servant automatically responds to any problem by listening first. Only through active listening can one gain true awareness, which leads to the ability to empathize and support healing." Although there is not an obvious parallel between the principle of stewardship and those of impartiality, neutrality, and independence, an important connection exists. Stewardship is defined as the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. Part of servant leadership, and highlighted in the 4 dimensions of moral authority, is establishing trust and making fair and impartial decisions with a focus on the greater good. A servant leader must remain objective to realize what is in the best interest of the majority. This concept is further supported by the organization's core principles of unity and universality. Although the American Red Cross is worldwide, all societies are considered equal and operate on the same values and core principles. This once again highlights a commitment to focusing on the greater good of the whole rather than the individual. Last is the principle of voluntary service without a desire for gain. As with servant leadership, the foundation of this principle is in the ultimate calling to selflessly serve. Robert Greenleaf stated that servant leadership begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve first. The mission and vision and core principles of the organization are carried out by 500,000 plus volunteers. The American Red Cross fills a critical need in our communities, our country, and around the world. In response responding to a crisis and as part of their principle of humanity, the organization has ensured that both leaders and followers show empathy and promote holistic healing of both individuals and the communities they serve. To coordinate relief in times of crisis, the American Red Cross must focus on active listening and awareness as part of assessing the needs of the community. To successfully launch emergent responses of this magnitude, it requires the organization to also be skilled at the servant leadership principles of conceptualization and foresight. Northhouse points out that these core values allow the servant leader to respond to complex organizational problems in creative ways, enabling them to deal with the intricacies of the organization. Without the ability to see the bigger picture, the American Red Cross could not successfully achieve preparedness, which is a crucial part of their mission. In alignment with the servant leadership principles of supporting the growth of people, the American Red Cross provided training and certifications to more than 5 million people. Not only do these programs extend to the community, but also to the many volunteers, staff, and leaders within the organization. Robert Greenleaf stated that any human service where one is served requires the community to support one another. The local chapters in the American Red Cross are embedded in the community and respond to specific local needs. The staff and volunteers of these chapters strive to meet the needs and strengthen the communities they serve. After looking at servant leadership in the scope of a nonprofit, we can now look at the principles applied to my organization. Health Services Advisory Group, or HSAG, is the largest quality improvement organization in the country supporting healthcare providers in 25 states. The company is led by the original founder, and her personal values and commitment to serve have influenced the culture of the company. Many of the core principles of servant leadership have been successfully embedded into the culture. For example, the company is committed to serving and embracing relationships with its followers through the core principles of empathy, healing, and awareness. This is manifested in the care taken by the servant to make sure that others' people's highest priorities are served. To continue to grow, HSAG has a robust employee development program to include tuition reimbursement, training and certification programs, and employee assistance programs. Servant leaderships commit to programs focusing on serving and growing employees both personally and professionally while strengthening the internal community. However, opportunities exist to further develop critical servant leadership principles. The first is listening. The best test of whether we are communicating is to ask ourselves first, are we listening? Active listening can be the key to awareness, so continuous improvement of this skill is critical in servant leadership. Another valuable principle requiring ongoing skill building is persuasion. While some emergent situations require an authoritarian approach, it is not in alignment with the actions of a servant leader. Leadership by persuasion has the virtue of changing by convincement rather than coercion. In today's competitive and ever-growing and changing business environment, it is critical to have foresight and the ability to respond swiftly to both internal and external forces of change. Intuition and lessons from the past will assist the servant leader in anticipating critical changes in the business environment and meet the ethical responsibility to respond swiftly. In conclusion, I'd like to end with Matthew 20:26 through 28. But whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as ransom for many. Thank you for listening.